If Seattle is to be credited, it is very, very immoral for a hostage to try to escape. Very immoral. Let's remember what they're selling. They're selling that a script they say doesn't say what it says, that they say they can't understand, it's too problematic and complicated, and which they insisted was completely innocent when it was sent to a battered, deaf child, largely prelingual and prepubescent, who they were torturing. Only says what it says in the lens of the child could have been a prodigy and understood what had happened, even though he was under a neurohypnotic trance from an implant devised by Cyril Wecht and Bernard Wattenmaker, a forensic pathologist and an Attica State Prison psychiatrist. Let's remember what Seattle's selling. It's important to remember what they're selling. That's what they're selling. So they're saying that it's immoral for the victim of torture to escape the perpetrators of torture and brain surgeons and contaminators. It's immoral to try to escape that. Okay. Now, what's bothering you isn't that. If you're like me, you like to be neighborly with broadcast media. Big Brother is broadcasting. So if you're like me and you're not voting for either Toon or any of the third-party weirdos or any of the um, Democrats, voting no confidence in the right end, if you're like me, you're haunted by the feeling that Toon could be worse than Comic God's gift. And you read things that really try to stoke that. They say things like, if you sat quietly during Gaza, then you would have been party to slavery, completely ignoring that the NAACP has endorsed Kamala, that she has black people lining up in her interest, and they have said nothing about Gaza. Can just completely ignore that. It nevertheless haunts you if you're like me. Well, I'm not the biggest fan of Eugene Ryer. He strikes me as a sandbagger who supported Odo during the atrocity, who came down, who was with Seattle saying it is very immoral for a queer ball to try to escape hostage. But he did resolve for me something that might help you too, which is if Toon gets elected, the idea that somehow the Democratic Party might have been better. Remember when that tyrant, Ron Reagan, was elected? Well, all of the idiots in the Democratic Party are now claiming they represent Ron Reagan. It's true, they did. They were echoes of his fascist philosophy, and it's obvious now. We all can see that. Some of the sandbaggers try to make Ronald Reagan look better than them, even. Well, Eugene pointed this out, that it's preposterous. That the right, what we perceive as right-wing republicanism is what becomes what we perceive as left-wing Democrats. That's the march of the situation. So we might as well know what we're dealing with, instead of getting these sneaky little dacoits like Bod, the puppet at Pol Pot. Well, one of the things that has changed is we used to have a group of people, in like the ACLU, for example, who knew what muckraking was and yellow journalism was. That's all changed. We're electing a president of muckraking. Our rock star, oh no, it's the high priest of muckraking. The opposite of what they claim to be protecting civil liberties. The opposite. The defending genocidal psychopaths who ran the Mount Desert Island Venus flytrap that illustrated for them the justice of AIDS injection, and they were using contamination, putting things in people's mouths. They use scabies. I mean, they use Fripp and Gabriel are psychopathically addicted to bacteriological warfare. They 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 call it irritability and stuff. They're psychopaths. I mean, the story is long. You can read about it in my blog. They're really sick. But their muckraking claim is that you had like Diane Keaton and Looking for Mr. Goodbar, right? She goes through all of these men, and one of them stabs her in the end. Yeah, and this is like karma in their philosophy. You're looking for someone who you're comfortable with, and you have um, sexual cravings, so you give yourself to somebody. It doesn't work out. You break up with them, look for somebody else, and you get stabbed to death at the end, and that's karma. That's justice. That's their wheel system. And we're supposed to believe that these people represent our civics, our basic values. See, one of the preposterous mindsets that they're working is the idea that the hostage didn't have the right to play act, that he was friendly with people who were tormenting him in an effort to escape. It's like when you hide in the towel closet, don't say like Anne Frank. Don't say these people were on the brink of murder and you so you played nice. Well, Consuelo was a French in Carnegie Mellon's drama school, and there's a film that she asked me to do sign language in this film, and she didn't. She only half trained me in the part, and she told us there was going to be a rehearsal. It was in the ROTC shooting gallery. It was back in like 82 or 83 when AIDS had just started, and it was in the ROTC shooting gallery. And she had the cameras, and she didn't. And she started waving me because I said, "Wait a minute, can we start the rehearsal over?" She said, "This isn't a rehearsal. We're filming." So what they did was they knew that they were um, dealing with somebody who was trying to play act their way out of being held hostage in a snuff film guild who had kidnapped and tortured them, because Andrew Swimmer was working with Diamond Gullis and Jaime Carbonell at the facility, who were behind 911. It's called Carnegie Mellon University. So this was actually a experimental film theoretical moment where the actor lapses into real and then goes back into acting because they're maniacs. They look at all aspects of their puppet, you see. And one thing that convinced me that Mackenzie Shirilla was puppeteered was the way that she play acted. She was, I must also add, more than a minor. 17 years old was a minor. She was more than a minor. They used a chemical that was designed to induce Holocaust trauma. In other words, if you see a child screaming in madness because he saw his sister's head torn off, he's only 6 years old, okay, and you ask the Pittsburgh Pirates bad boys what they think of him, they'd say, "Oh, he's a sissy, he's a pussy, kick his head." And if you ask the judge in Strongville, he'd say, "Try him as an adult, try him as an adult."